Divine Rise. Blessed be to you. Blessed be to your day. May be everything you require to create everything that you desire. Understanding that this healing is destructive. You are deserving, but you are not entitled. And a level of honesty, this truth is going to take you out of your comfort zone and into that darkness. Take you out of them rings of that. Take you out of the rings and into the game. I'm Papa Lucifer Samdi, your occult therapist. And today, as I said before, we're going to get more into these videos of being in that real life situation with yourself in the application process. And today I wanted to get into integrity. And the degrees of integrity. You can have the highest level of integrity. You can have integrity out the ass. Like, yeah, I got a lot of integrity with myself. But until you understand something similar, this shit is not generic. It's not generic. We have to stop using the generic definitions to define ourselves inside of comfort. Because that's the only time you use them. That's the only time you'll sit there and say something about you being honest is based in your comfort zone. Only when you're triggered. The only time I remember saying a lot of the things that I would say was only when I was triggered. You'll stand on what you said or move in a certain space basically only when you triggered. Only when you're triggered. I remember only doing it when I was triggered. It was only a challenge to my integrity only when I was triggered inside of a space where it was time for me to face myself. So if somebody asked me a question and I couldn't answer that question, at the end of it, I'll be like, yo, at least I still got my integrity intact. And it was true. I had my integrity intact. I had my integrity intact. I had it there. It was in place. Had my integrity intact. But in the reality to it with myself, and being honest with myself, and being totally honest with myself, getting into that dark space with myself, guess what? If I was deceiving myself, or I had this deception with myself, and I was still holding out on people not being honest with me from my beginning, that means I still had that emotional trauma from not knowing certain things or certain bits of information, not getting certain things. And I built my patterns. Based on that. That means everything that I built up until the point when I actually started going through the healing process has to be addressed. It has to be addressed. It's not just the things that you thought, because it's just not the things that you're, okay, cool, well, I'll fix this about myself, get into this about myself, fix this about myself, everything else will be good. I can keep everything else on the table. No, that's not what it is. When you're really getting into this work, when you're really getting into your shadow work, when you're really getting down into the depths of yourself, when you're really going into these loops that you created for yourself, these patterns that you created with yourself, the surface level is everything based on that ego before you actually get into the real aspects of it. This is not based on pride. You will sit there. I remember sitting in spaces where I would procrastinate and call it patience. The middle point between procrastination and patience is pride. That same action inside of your mind and your thought process where you think that you're saying you're practicing patience is pride. Think about it. Because here's an aspect of practicing patience. If I can wake up, I wake up at 4:30 a.m. Up at 4:30 a.m. as an example. Up at 4:30 a.m. I'll sit there with myself until about 4:45, a little bit sometimes, and then I'll meditate. I sit there and I meditate. I'll meditate from probably 4:30 to probably 5:15 now. I've extended my meditations. That's patience. That's patience. Procrastination is procrastination. Procrastination is in reaction to some shit. See, patience, you setting the tone. You're setting the tone to be humble for the space that you're in to be able to do what you're able to do in your truth of yourself. The integrity. You're able to look at you're able to acknowledge what is restrictive and look at it in that space and be like, I'm not going to try to overcompensate inside of this space. See, I can sit there easily and say, okay, I'm going to meditate, but I got to be at the park. I got to be at the park to go meditate. I got to have quiet when I go meditate. And I can give myself all of these excuses to what I need in order for me to meditate. Give myself all these excuses and I'll procrastinate. Well, when I get a chance to go to the park the next time, then I'll do my meditation. That means in order for me to get to the park, using that example, in order for me to get to the park, I gotta find a park that's close enough because I don't live near a park. So that means I would need a car. So now I gotta wait about getting a car. So now I gotta wait in order to get a ride to go to the park. So now I gotta wait or I can wait until the bus runs and then I grab a bus or I get an Uber or I get a Lyft. In order for me to do what is necessary for me, I must wait for something outside of me to happen. That's procrastination. That keeps you within the delusion of your integrity, your pride, into over-promising things or over-exerting yourself into certain spaces. Because now you're going to wake up early in the morning, and because that's a thought that's on your mind that must be honored. That thought has to be honored. So now everything that you're going to do is going to give you the option to how you're going to honor that thought. The option to how you're going to honor that thought. This is where your integrity lies. This is where that honesty lies with yourself. Because now, guess what? Think about it. Everything inside of your space is based on the consumption of your own mindset. So now you sitting there inside of your space and you're like, okay, cool. I'm going to do this, and that. Now you go to work. Now you go to your job. You go to work. Now you go to your job. Now you at work. Now you telling your homegirl, you telling your homeboys, you telling somebody like, yo, man, I was trying to meditate this morning and it was so crazy, man. I was trying to meditate. I was trying to get to myself and man, it didn't happen, nothing happened. Or it was too loud. Or man, I need to really do it at the park. Or things of that nature. Here's the thing. Do you know what meditation means? Do you know what meditation is to do? Meditation is to receive. It's not to get, meditation is to come into the state of reception. That means when you sit there with yourself, what are you receiving? And you're becoming aware of what you're receiving. Well, you're becoming aware of what you're receiving. So, if I'm stuck in a state of procrastination, that means I'm in fear of sitting down to see what it is that I'm truly receiving. So I'll put it off. I'm afraid, think about it like this, you go to school, you're in class. I'm afraid that I might not do good in this test, in this class, or with this project, so I'm going to put it off to the last minute. Because I always do my best work under that pressure. Where did you learn that from? Where did you learn it from? See, the aspect of you coming into this space with yourself of sitting in that space is understanding where you learned what you learned and how you learned it, where you learned it, and why you're still applying it. That why. Why you're still applying what you're applying, how you're still applying what you're applying, why you're still applying to that mechanic. A lot of the times we keep applying to these same mechanics because that's all we've ever known. That's all we've ever seen. That's all we've ever dealt with. That's all that's ever been presented to us. So when you get stuck within the degrees of that integrity of using the example of what it is to be a man, what it is to be independent, a lot of times you're stuck within that state of deception with yourself. So this is when I give the definition of you have to understand how you're attracting things, when you're attracting things, and why you're attracting them. A lot of times you'll be like, I'm a good person. I'm tired of people being toxic. I'm tired of people being this. I'm tired of people being that. But in the reality to the space is you have to sit there with yourself, really sit here with yourself and realize, why do I keep attracting the same thing? What is it about what I'm attracting? Am I seeing what I'm attracting for what it is? Or am I trying to see it for what it was based on my old monologue inside of my mind? Because I met one person that way, all people are that way. Because it fits my narrative. I can deal with somebody being this, this, and this, but I won't deal with this, this, and this. Is it tangible or is it intangible? Is it tangible or is it intangible? That means, can you pay for it or can you not pay for it? A lot of times we sit inside of a space. What'll happen when you don't have the money? Think about it. What if you don't have the... Think about it. Think about it. If you did not have the job that you had right now, or the access to what you had access to, would you be at where you were at? See, this becomes that honesty in a lot of spaces I remember getting an honesty with myself when I really had to understand how I achieved what I achieved, how I got what I got, how I was getting what I was getting, the space that I was in, how I got to that space, how I was able to survive. And looking inside of that space with myself. When I had to do that aspect, it changed a lot of the thought processes and conversations I was having with myself. It changed a lot of the conversations I was having with myself. Because, I was having a lot of conversations. But none of my conversations were getting me anywhere. I was having a shit ton of conversations. But none of my conversations were getting me anywhere. I was having a lot of conversations, but none of them shits were getting me anywhere. A lot. Because I felt that, I got my pride, I got my pride, got my dignity. Can't nobody tell me I can't do this. Can't nobody tell me I can't do that. I've done this, I've done that, I've done all of this work, I've done all of this over here. Here's the thing about that. What you did yesterday doesn't matter. What you did yesterday doesn't matter. All that's left in reality of what you did yesterday is the lesson. All that's left based on yesterday is the lesson. All that you did an hour ago is the lesson. That's all that's left. Is all that's left. I did so much for these people. That's nice. I've done that shit. Like, when we really think about this, I've sat inside that space with myself like, I've done so much for so many people. I'm tired of doing so much for so many people. It's time for people to do some shit for me. It's time for people to prove to me But inside of that space with myself, as I sat with myself, saying this over and over and over again, the thing that I feared was this false perception of starting over. When in reality, you don't start over. There's no such thing as starting. There's no such thing as okay, I don't want to go back to a certain point. Because that point no longer exists. That point only lasts in the now. This point that you're living in right now with your integrity, of raising your integrity, raising yourself up to that standard. You have to keep challenging your own standard. That's the key. Yeah, you don't have to challenge anybody else. As long as you're challenging your own standard, you're going to come out of that state of constricting yourself. A lot of times you'll stay in that, and a lot of times you stay in this prideful situation with yourself and you can't see the answer because your old purpose or your old aspect of your purpose to that point is no longer valuable. See, when you're moving up inside of your space and you're exalting your integrity, that means you're able to observe things. It's just not in the spaces that keep you comfortable. It's everything got to change. When I talk about this, everything got to change. That means you have to go back to a certain point with yourself. There's something that's on the table that you got to deal with. See, when you're changing everything, everything elevates. That's not certain parts. And you got to realize that since you're elevating yourself and your purpose and going forward, guess what you got to do? Guess what you got to do? Everybody can't come. Everybody can't come. The same definition that you're calling patience can be the very definition of procrastination. The definition that you're using is patience. You're saying that you're patient, and your pride, remember I just said that, your pride in between your patience and the middle point between patience and procrastination is pride. The middle point between procrastination and patience is pride. And just like anger, just like being sad, just like being in fear, just like being in all of these aspects of these emotions, just like jealousy, gluttony, the 7 deadly, pride has many layers. Pride has many layers. And remember, when we talk about the senses, all of these senses have to be active in order to manifest pride. How you see things, how you taste things, how you feel things, how you smell things, how you hear things, created a body of pride. So you think that's on one level because you learned patience in one area, that's going to work in another area? No, it's not. So you think just because you learned integrity, you learned to exalt your integrity and understand you was in a constricting environment that you're saying, ooh, my family was constricting. But now since you're not understanding the way that you built, oh, my family was constricting, they didn't want me to be who I wanted to be and things of that nature. So now I'm going to run over here and I'm going to get my own place. I'm going to run over here and get all this. Now you're sitting over there. Now you created that space. Based on that pride, now you created an entire new body of pride. So now you want to go prove that you can take care of some shit. You want to prove you can take care of some shit and take care of others. But ultimately, now you're sitting inside of that space trying to prove something to keep that energy coming to you. So that's why you keep attracting what you're attracting. See, I had to understand why I was attracting what the fuck I was attracting. Because I was deceiving myself. Ultimately, the only deception was me. I was deceiving myself. The only toxic person inside of my life was myself. The only toxic monkey inside of my life was me. The only one that was doing the deceiving was me. The only one that was doing the manipulating was me. Because outside of me, with my senses in action and being activated, was manifesting these things into my space. So my integrity was in detriment. My integrity wasn't overexerting myself. My integrity was in overexerting myself to a point to where I would have to naturally break promises and deadlines. But I couldn't see that because as long as I had another deadline that was of value, as long as the deadline was of true value to me in the external sense, this means, give this example, that means when I'm sitting there inside of that space and the reason I was going to work to make the money because the money had more value to me so I could do other things, the same reason that I was going to work was the same reason I was complaining about leaving. But I built my entire space on that factor. So I was building all of these spaces on that factor. So what's the only thing that can live inside of that space? Either it's at that level or it's either can be at that level or below that level. It can't be above it. This is honesty. It can't be above it. Because if it's above it, it would challenge me. It would challenge me. So if anything came into my space that was above the level that I was at to challenge me, that was necessary challenge, what would I have? What do I have to use? You don't understand. I've been doing this and I did this and I did this and I've been doing this. Carlos, didn't nobody say nothing about that shit. Carlos, didn't nobody deny you that you didn't do the work, put in some work? Didn't nobody deny you that you didn't nobody deny you that you put in work? But what did you learn from your work? The lesson that you learn from something. The true lesson is unbiased, impartial, absolute. Your truth. This is what I mean by you must go into the darkness to get that. Because that's when I can plant that seed. This is why when they say the greatest form of appreciation or thanks is to be able to pass the lesson on. You know what I mean? To be able to pass the lesson on. To pass that lesson on, to pass that knowledge on. So if I'm sitting inside of spaces where I can't say how I got there or be open with how I got to that position, got to that point, whether it being negative or positive, then I'm not learning the lesson. See, everybody want to talk about how do you know when the lesson's been learned and you know it's going to repeat. Let me give you the game. Let me give you this game real quick. The way that you know that you have mastered a lesson, the way that you know that you have mastered a lesson is once you have mastered the lesson, you are able to pass that lesson on in an impartial and unbiased manner. Now, this doesn't mean that you might not sound emotional when you say it. Just don't mean that. This don't mean, I'm not talking about when you project. Because that's the thing that we also got to get into with ourselves. A lot of times, even if we got the answer, we got the lesson, we want to pass it on, this is what happened. Now, let's get into the other part first. A lot of times, we'll get information, we'll get what we need, what is necessary for us to move forward, But because we're not ready to, because we created these spaces, we need them to stay. This is when I talk about that safety net. This is when we talk about that safety net. A lot of you have safety nets. A lot of you got safety nets in place. I remember I had safety nets in place. I had whole safety nets. I had whole safety nets in place. Whole safety nets in place to protect my pride. I had whole safety nets in place to protect my pride. To make sure that I was, all right, cool, I'm good. As long as I got people over there that need me, I'm good. And here's the thing, as long as I got people that need help around me, I will always be me. Here's the reality to it. Sometimes, you got to start there and look and realize that the reason that they're not doing anything is a simple why. I had to understand that, the reason that they're not doing the work the reason that they're not growing is because why would they grow? Why would they show any sense of growth? Why would they show any sense of initiative? Why would they show any source of that? If I'm myself not giving them the space to do it. See, the thing about your integrity and maintaining your integrity is you're going to have to get to that point with yourself where you're able to look at a situation for what it is and since you're looking at it for what it is, you're able to provide what is necessary. And this shit is some of the scariest shit on the planet when it's necessary. Because I'm talking about the intangible shit. See, there's a difference between you. There's a difference when you're sitting inside of a space in a position with yourself and you got to realize like, yo, I can help you. I got you. But not at the risk, not at the detriment, not at the constriction of leaving. When you leave, when I'm not in the space no more, I'm in the negative. See, this is when you got to be honest with yourself. I remember being in positions, because we used to it, it's a trauma response. You're used to being left negative. You look at your homegirl and you overextend yourself to your homegirl because all of a sudden you looking at your phone on some light shit and you're like, I know what it feels like to be left on red. I would never leave you left on red. I know what it feels like, but you never asked them why they were left on red. I know what it feels like to be without food. But when are you going to ask that question? This is where your integrity kicks in for exalting yourself. When are you going to ask the question of why are you hungry? I know what it's like not to have a place to stay. When are you going to ask the question, why don't you have a place to stay? The real reason why you don't have this and those things. Because if you're not willing to ask that why, you leave yourself open to being attacked. You leave yourself open to being attacked. If you can't ask that why and they can't give you that answer and it not be of truth with themselves, and the only way that you know of that truth with it is based on knowing yourself. See, that's the key. That's how it becomes reciprocation. This is when we talk about the aspects of being reciprocal inside of that space. But if I'm not sitting there being honest with myself, of course I cannot expect, if I'm deceiving myself to how I got to where I got to, I always have an expectation. I want for nothing, I need for nothing, in truth. I desire to build, grow. For me, as I always say this all the time, I desire to build, I desire to continue to grow, I desire to build, I desire to evolve. I desire to keep in check, always to shed. I desire to be the fucking best. That means I must stay in a state of dissatisfaction so I'm able to use and transmute everything that I come into so that I can see things for what they actually are. See, my integrity in this healing journey is exalting myself, is raising my integrity, to see myself in a situation and knowing when I go into that space, I can be honest with my approach. Not only this, to be honest, because a lot of times we think about being overly honest and we say everything, but we're not saying anything. You say, just like, remember, it's in moderation. You can be honest and not say anything. You can be upfront and not say anything. You dig what I'm saying? You can be upfront and honest and not say anything. It's moderation. My honesty in the situation is at all times inside of that space. I'm able to be in every space that I can go into. I can say what needs to be said because there's a reason for it to be said there. I'm a whole fucking life coach, healer. I can be honest about my position of where I'm at and why I'm there and how I got there. And every time it'll be impartial and unbiased. Because I can take that accountability. This is a process. Still processing it, still learning it. So I'm not saying this from a position of saying, I got all the, no. As the divine masculine aspect is pursuit of happiness. Pursuit of happiness. I might look that movie up and watch it. Pursuit of happiness. In this line Will Smith said in there, he was like, I can admit when I do not have the answer. And that's okay. But I will say to you this, that I know where to go find the answer. Or I will go find out where to go find that answer. See, that's integrity in the exalted aspect. It's okay for you to sit here and not know some shit. Not know what to do next. There's a difference between you not knowing what to do next and you knowing, no, let me put it like this. There's a difference between you not knowing what to do next based on the accessories of that pride versus knowing what is necessary is going to humble you in everything inside of that space. It's going to I'm going to give you this key before we get out of here. When you're doing what is necessary, in truth that is necessary, That means you're doing exactly what is necessary inside of a space. It's based on the feeling of what comes up. That means if you know that you gotta use an example. If you know that you got a homegirl, homeboy, friend, whatever, and you know you gotta stop being around them because you already told them that they need time alone. That necessity is you giving them that same alone time. That necessity is gonna be you giving them that alone time. You keep telling your homegirl right now that they need time to themselves. They need to sit with themselves they need to sit with themselves and be with themselves and deal with themselves. But you keep showing up every time that they do something. When are you going to give them the first gift? You keep saying that your homeboy needs time to himself. He needs to sit down with himself and write out some shit, write out that plan. And really be honest with himself. What's stopping you from allowing it to happen? Now we can sit there from the traumatic response, bro, and be like, well, it's because at the house that he's at or where they live, they don't get that same thing there. That's true. That's true. But I had to understand in this. In order for me to provide structure, in programs with people, when I'm listening to their story and know exactly what I need to provide, what provisions I need to bring into that space, guess what I got to do? I got to sit with the story for real. I can't see the story from an emotional standpoint. I can't see the story I cannot look at the story from me. You get what I'm saying? I can't look at the story from me. I can't look at the story from me. That means I can't look at their story like, yeah, I remember going through that. Now I sat here and I did this never land. I must see it as the therapist. For me, my purpose is as helping niggas with their shadow work go along their path. So when I look at that aspect, I must see it from the exalted view. I can't see it from their delusions. In order to see their delusion, I must be above that aspect. I don't even be above it or below it. I cannot allow myself to become a part of that space, but I understand that I'm of that same narrative. I understand that I'm of that narrative. But the things that I'm doing now are to make me no longer a part of that narrative. I understand that I was of that narrative. But the things that I'm doing now are making me so I'm no longer a part of that narrative. And that's when you get to sit there and you get to see them going through what they're going through, but you're providing a space that has boundaries set in place. That's going to trigger the boundary issues that they have. The only way that you're going to be able to trigger that is by you setting boundaries. See how that works? You have to set the boundary first. The only way that you can teach somebody what patience is that you have to be active in checking your pride at the door. See, every situation, that's why I made that video talking about everything that you're going through is justified based on it's always justified based on your approach to it. Just like when I said that, this is in the same instance of you going through the space where you're at right now. Everything happening inside of your space is justified based on what you're not ready to face. What you're not ready to face. And it shows up in everything that's happening inside of your space. So this is when I tell people you got to be honest with yourself. For a long time, I wanted somebody to match me, and they always did. They always did. And it was always a state of reaction. It was always infatuation. I was infatuated. I loved it. But when somebody truly challenged me, when somebody was challenging me, it was a whole different ballgame. Because it didn't come the way that I wanted it to come. It came the way that it was necessary. It came the way it was necessary as shit. Necessary as fuck. And this is how you know when it's necessary. You can't manipulate it. See, you can't manipulate the shit that comes from your darkness. It comes out exactly as it's supposed to be. It comes out exactly as it's supposed to be. So you sitting inside that space with yourself right now at this point in time, and you thinking, oh my God, my life is not going the way I wanted to go. I need this, this, and this. I need you to really sit with yourself. Is your integrity with yourself at this moment in time, this integrity that you're holding with yourself at this period in time, is it based in deceiving yourself based on your patterns? Or is it based on now you're observing yourself and seeing that what you did at that point in time, all that truly left is the lesson? Say it one more, I'm gonna say it and give it again. Is what you're doing right now at this point in time based on the deception to yourself, and you're finding yourself overshooting. And when we think about it, you're overshooting. And this is how you know you're overshooting. This is how I knew I was overshooting a lot of times. It should not matter who's all over there for me to go. Shouldn't matter. Shouldn't matter. Don't matter. It shouldn't matter that if I'm living in abundance, prosperity, my wealth, my health, then it shouldn't matter that if I do what I need to do that's necessary, unless I've put myself inside of a position where now there's only one thing left for me to do. There's only one thing left for me to do, and I have to do it. I must accept it. I must accept that everybody can't go. I must accept that everybody cannot go. I must accept that even though I can see what needs to be done, if they do not see that within themselves, but I can leave a space, I can leave that door there. Not opened, I can leave that door there. I can plant that seed. Plant that seed, which is that key. Within that seed is the key for them to walk through that door themselves. Within that seed is the key for them to unlock and walk with themselves. And as long as I can plant that seed in my exalted sense of my integrities, in my exalted aspects of honor and humility, and I'm planting it with love, then it only can be unlocked with love. Boundaries. That's your boundary. If I plant something in love, it only can be unlocked with love. If I plant something in honor, it only can be unlocked with honor. If I plant something with humility, it only can be unlocked with humility. That's how this is when we talk about when you set your intentions. So you wondering why you can't get nowhere right now is because you got to check what seeds and how you planted what you planted those seeds through. And the stuff that sprouted up, it's time to look at what it really is. As always, I tell you, I desire you to be the motherfucking best. You are deserving, but you are not entitled. This healing is destructive. The level of honesty that is going to take you into that dark space so you can really get into that evaluation with your life. There is no more excuses. With me, everything from the consultations, readings, any of my services, guided meditations, any of my services, you can email me, hit the number. If you're looking at this on TikTok, hit me in the DM, hit me in the direct messages. Instagram, do the same thing. Facebook, hit me in the inbox of the DMs. Hit me in the emails. Because only today matters. Today is the day of investment. What are you investing in? What are you learning? There's no more excuses. From this moment right here, you got one. From this moment here, you got a choice. That choice lays out your options, and those options lay out to the aspects of how you're dealing with your conditions. I can't make you choose. And whatever choice you gotta walk, run with that. You gotta move with that. But I love you. We love us.